Hello world, welcome to the complete beginner's guide to Prison Architect, campaign mode. This is the guide where we go through the campaign of Prison Architect and we learn all we can about the game through its tutorial. After you've completed the first chapter of Prison Architect, when you load it up for the first time, you're going to start off a screen like this one, with a blank map. Otherwise, you're going to just begin with chapter 1, which is what we're going to be doing in this episode. If you end up on this map and you want to go and start the campaign, hit escape or hit this house icon. So when you enter main menu, you have 3 options for a campaign. The first option lets you play the campaign. The second option lets you look at the cutscenes that you unlocked during the campaign mode. And the third option lets you load a campaign that you've saved. So let us pick campaign. So we're going to look at campaign number 1, Death Row. Death Row. We've been contracted to build an execution chamber at this prison in the time for the scheduled execution of one of their inmates. Let us play. And a cutscene will begin to play right away. So this is probably what it's going to look like when you load up the game for the first time. You're going to see this right away. And you can see you have prisoners and they have cells and they're labeled cell. There's a bed and a toilet. Each cell has a cell door. There's this nice hallway right here where prisoners can walk between the cells. There's this nice shower room, and we have workers cleaning the shower room, making the floors cleaner. And we have workers to bring in toilets, building cells. And these are all things that you, as the manager of the game, you can do. You play as the manager. You play as the person in charge of the prison. And so prisoners are going to come in, and we're going to have to manage the prison. There we go. We got stuff coming in deliveries, and including just, boxes and other supplies, the prisoners come in through the deliveries as well. We have some offices for our administration, such as our warden. We have a chief. And finally, we got garbage heading out to the garbage, which gets loaded up on trucks. Now, speaking of the prisoner that's going to be executed, I believe that's this prisoner here. And he is a guest. I think it's a priest. Prison Architects. All right, let's click. You can just click through it if you want to skip that, by the way. You can just hit click. And we get a call from the CEO. So just click on the box, and we get to talk to the CEO. I'm just going to do voices. Bear with me. This is a tough one. There is a prisoner incarcerated at this facility who's got a double murder death. That's where we come in. We've been contracted to construct an execution chamber, so we're building an execution chamber. So that's our job. As the manager, we need to build an execution chamber. And this is where I want it to be. The first step with any project is to construct the building itself with enough space inside to fit an execution room and a holding cell. I mean, this makes sense. It wouldn't make sense just to put, the electric chair, which is what we're going to use to execute them. It wouldn't make sense to put the electric chair in the middle of the prison or in the middle of one of the walkways. It has to be inside of a building. So we're going to build a new building. And right here, they lay out the size of the building they want us to build. We also need an entrance to the new execution facility. Yeah, it makes sense when you're building a building to have at least one door so that people can get in and out of the building. Build a large cell door on the south wall. And there we go. And that's where the door is going to be. And as you can see, this is happening automatically. It's going to click and drag. And that's how you place objects such as buildings. The building's foundation is found in foundations. And so we pick one of the 2 different types of foundations. And we click and drag on this right here to build the building. So I click on this corner, we click and drag all the way till it's this other corner. And when I release it, it is going to build the building. And of course, the bigger the building is, the more expensive it's going to be. So we're just going to put the building of this size right here, and we queued it up. We didn't actually build the building, we just gave instructions for our workers to build it. I'm getting a call right now, but I'm going to ignore that for right now. And objects are where everything you put inside of buildings and on top of buildings are. And so one of them is the jail door, the large jail door in particular. So we want it right here. And that's going to go on the edge of the building. It doesn't make sense to put the door on the inside of the building initially because you need an entrance to go inside. So you first start with putting a door on the outside of your building so that you can get in and out of it. So to exit out of this Objects tab, you can hit Escape. Or you can just click Objects a second time. So if you're in Objects and you click on Objects, it'll go away. And to move around, you can zoom in and out with a mouse wheel. You can also do WASD to move around, the arrow keys to move around, and that's about it for moving. There we go, our building is built. Let's see what the CEO has to say for us. Your workmen are responsible for the construction of buildings. They'll collect the steel and concrete from the storeroom and take it to the construction site. They'll use those raw materials to build the foundation and framework of your new building. This is the slowest part of construction, so you should plan ahead when building new facilities. While we wait, take a look around. WASD and arrow keys, mouse wheel to zoom in and out. There's actually another way to move around too. You can also move your mouse to the edge of the screen. So if you move your mouse all the way to the top, you can move up. If you move your mouse all the way to the left and press it against the left, you move to the left, etc., etc. When we create the building, once there's a door on the edge of the building, then the walls will automatically be placed. So there's walls on the outside of the building, and the inside is going to be empty. Now we can add walls inside so we can designate rooms, which is what he's asking us to do. He wants us to put some walls in so we can separate it into 3 different sections. 1 big section and 2 smaller sections here. And I assume this is space for a door. So yeah, when you build a building, walls are automatically put around it. Inside the building, I want a cell and execution room. Partition the space by constructing some brick walls. Alright, so walls are going to be under materials. This is where all the walls are, including fence. I don't see a fence in this prison, but I like to use fences in my prison to keep the prisoners in. But you need some kind of wall on the outside to keep prisoners in. Now we need to build this wall here, and since we picked brick for our foundation, it's going to choose brick wall here. Now you click and drag it, and I click and drag all the way, and I release it. I queued up the wall, but before they build it, I can actually delete the section of the wall by right-clicking. So I can click and drag, and right-click. And there we go. So I unqueued up this section of the wall. And then for this, I can just click, click. And there we go. Now these walls have been queued up. Now, while the walls are being built, I'm going to talk about materials just a little bit briefly. I'm actually going to save time because I know it's going to be coming up. I'm going to build some walkways. Materials is the surface that the ground is made out of. So right here, if you look, this is dirt, 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 and this is a nice smooth stone walkway. Dirt, 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 dirt. If you come here, the showers have this tile on it, and this is a stone walkway, but the cells just have the concrete floor. We can choose what floor type we want in the materials menu, and we can just pick one, such as paving stones, click and drag, and we release it. The workers will build it. So we'll just put a walkway there, and we'll continue a walkway here. So there we go. Now our workers are building the walkway. So let us listen to what the CEO has to say. Now add large jail doors to those dividing walls. You can rotate an object before placement by clicking the middle mouse button or pressing R. R makes the most sense. That way you can use WASD to move around, and then R. In addition to WASD and R, another important button is space. Space pauses the game. So when I hit spacebar, it pauses the game. And up here you can see this is play, and this is pause. There's also fast forward, and if you watch, the people are walking around faster. And this is super fast forward, so you see everyone's moving around really fast. Yeah, let's go to where the prisoners are. Prisoners moving around fast, but then hit play normal speed, and it looks like they've slowed down like a third of their normal, well, a third of the super fast speed. Alright, we need these jail doors so that our CEO can pat us on the back and say, we did a good job, we did a good job building this building. So of course, R is to rotate the objects. Now, some objects can only be rotated 2 ways. Other objects, like a chair, can be rotated all 4 ways. So we're just going to use the large jail door. And we have the 2 jail doors queued up. If you want to look up a particular object, you can just type in the name down in this toolbar below. So I want to look at all the doors. So I'm going to type in door. D-O-O-R, door. Now, these are all the doors in the game. Some are unlocked, and we have to do research in order to be able to use them. Oh, the CEO is yelling at us. Dang it. That's looking good. Now we need to designate this room within the spaces. Designate a cell in the smaller area where our condemned inmate will live. Then designate the execution room itself inside the larger area. Alright, I'm going to finish up talking about doors quick. Each door has a different cost, but it also has its own benefit. The more expensive, the better the door is in general. So the simple wooden door, anybody can walk in and out of it. So it's just to separate rooms. The staff door, only staff and guards can go through this door, but prisoners cannot. Solitary door, only guards can go through this door. And the jail doors, both the large and normal sized jail doors, also only guards can go through. What this means is when a worker wants to go into this room, they have to wait for a guard to open up the door. It can be a pain to have to wait for guards to open up doors, but right now we have 18 guards around. We have 18 guards kind of just waiting for things to do. And so that's a lot of guards just sitting around not really doing anything. I mean, they're technically guarding, but there are going to be plenty of people available to open these doors for us. Now, the CEO is talking about designating these rooms. Now, in order for the room to serve its function, we have to designate the room first. So before this can be an execution room, we need to tell the game that this space right here is an execution room. So we go to rooms, and this is where we designate the room. So these are all the different rooms you can have. So you can have a room you can have an office. This is you say, hey, I want an office. This room is going to serve the purpose of being an office. This room is going to serve the option of being a canteen where the prisoners are going to eat. We have 2 showers, a yard, 2 storages. We have 51 cells, but we can build another one by clicking on cell, and then you click and drag. You can't just click once in the center and expect it to work because it's not a paint bucket tool. You have to click and drag for the entirety of the room right there, and now it'll be the cell. Likewise, for execution, we go to execution, and we don't click in the middle. That won't work. That won't work either. We have to do the whole room, and if we go outside it, and rooms will ignore walls, so that's very nice. So if you accidentally go a little bit too far on one side and you release it, it will just ignore the wall. And there we go. We got our execution room and our cell. Those new rooms have requirements before they become functional. The cell needs a bed and a toilet. The execution room needs an electric chair. All right. And if you haven't noticed so far, all of the instructions we have to do are right here on this left toolbar. We can just hide it by clicking on it, but it's nice to see for now. So I need a bed, a toilet, and an electric chair. So let's just do it in that order. Now, as I said before, things that go inside of buildings are found in the Objects tab. So we go to Objects, we have bed, toilet, and electric chair. And in the tutorial, in the first chapter, everything's going to be flashing at you. Later on, they aren't going to be flashing at you, which is why it's nice to have the toolbar to type it up. So you can type in bed. That's the first object. That is not how you spell bed. That is how you spell bed. Bed. We're going to put the bed there. Next, we need the toilet. So T-O, toilet. And then again, we can rotate it around. So I'm going to rotate it around so it kind of makes sense right there. Finally, we need the execution chair. So electric chair. E-L-E, electric chair. I'm going to place it right there. And now we have, as soon as they're built, we'll have a new cell and an execution room. Now right here, this is how many prisoners we have and how many cells we have available to house those prisoners. So right now we have 45 prisoners inside our prison and 51 cells. Now as soon as this cell is complete, it should be 52. And the number of prisoners will remain the same until I think we kill one prisoner. And then the number of prisoners we have will go down. This is taking a really long time for me, so I'm just going to super fast forward until our workers get this built. And there we go. We got some people bringing a bed. We got someone bringing in a toilet. That's the essentials taken care of, but there's still a few improvements you can make. It's up to you, though. These aren't strictly required. It depends on how much you care about your prisoners and their environment. And it's actually a good idea to care about your prisoners to a certain extent, to do things that will benefit the prisoner, even if it costs you money or time. So, for example, the cell itself could be improved with an outward-facing window and a small bookshelf. And the facility would look better with a higher quality floor material, like wooden floorboards or mosaic tiles. And I already have the path built. Outside, you could add some lighting and a paved pathway if you think it needs it. And I think this is going to be story right now. We're going to learn some more of the story behind our prisoner that is going to be executed. There's the man in question, Edward Romsey, a teacher once, wouldn't you believe? It's not our place to decide if he deserves it. That's the judicial system. We're just the prison. It's even private prison is that. Once you're satisfied the facility is ready, we can begin the Once you decide the prisoner is ready, we can go and kill him. Simply click on the Polaroid in the cell to initiate the transfer. Okay, so the Polaroid is what ends each chapter. So we're technically at the end of each chapter. But for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to go through all of the optional requirements. So I'm going to do all these optional requirements real quick. Then we'll click on the Polaroid and finish up the chapter. But we're not going to do that right now. We want to finish up these requirements. So we added this path already. And as you can see here, it says we already added the path. We need to add a window, a bookshelf, and then high material floor for this area. So we go to Objects. Here's the window. So we can just rotate with R and have it face outward. We can just add another one on here too, just to be extra nice. 2 windows. We're going to have a bookshelf. We can put that right up in the corner. And some lights. We're going to want some lights up on this path. So we're going to put one on either side and one on either side. There we go. I got some lights on our path. Maybe just one more set here. There we go. That's a bunch of lights. So there we go. The window has been built. Now we have window. And these lights have been built, so we have lights finished up. Now we have to add the bookshelf. We have it queued up. And then finally redo the flooring with higher quality materials. That is under materials. And he suggested wooden floor or mosaic tile. I'm just going to pick which one is easier to clean up. It doesn't really matter that much. But I'm going to pick the one that it's easier to scrub up blood off of because this is an execution room. And just, it really doesn't matter that much. It's probably about this in the actual game in terms of cleaning. It doesn't matter that much. But I like to just create these themes. Like, oh, I would obviously want to have some kind of flooring that's easy to clean up in a room where people are expected to be dead or dying. So I'm going to pick ceramic floor. I'm just going to click and drag over the entirety of this. I missed this row up here, so I'm just going to add that quick. There we go. Now all this is queued up to have the nice new flooring. We can just speed up time super fast. And our workers are going to install the flooring. Now it's going to have this nice ceramic tiles. There we go. And escape. And we're done. We have completed all the additional objectives. We just have to click on the Polaroid and then we're done. That's the final objective. But before we click on the Polaroid, it's a good idea to save the prison. So you go to main menu and you're going to save the prison. So it's going to be save campaign. And then I recommend giving it a name. This is chapter 1, so it's going to be campaign chapter 1. Chapter 1. And that's what I'm just going to name it. You can name it anything you want, and then you hit save. There we go. We have gotten the Polaroid, and now we begin the final cutscene at the end of the chapter. And Edward takes his final walk towards his cell before he dies. Don't tread one tear for this guy. He's a stone-cold killer, guilty as charged. He even confessed. Want to hear the description of what he did? It's juicy stuff. It was around 11 p.m. The lights were already on. I knew she was home. And so I walked in. I'm just going to skip through this a little bit because the tutorial's over. This is just a cool cutscene. Actually, no, I'll go through it. I won't actually skip it. Oh no, they were having sex. And then he came in with a gun. I knew I actually don't know what voice to give him. I knew I'd catch you two here. Edward, don't. What are you gonna do? He has a gun, and he's mad. Yeah, that's what he's gonna do. He's gonna just shoot the guy, and shoots the wife. That is, that's where the double murder comes from. If he just shot the guy, that would just be single murder. But he killed two people, so that's double murder. Yeah, they're both dead. I mean, not only does it say they're dead, but you can see in the picture that that's a pretty large amount of blood loss. If you haven't figured it out, this game can get very dark. This game doesn't shy away from the darker themes of death and violence. But it is kind of a cartoony look to it, which makes it more approachable. Everything looks like a crude drawing, like something from a webcomic. Clear as day, if you ask me. Deserves every volt he's gonna get. Yes, but it isn't volts, it's amps that kill you. But then again, he's a security guard. He doesn't care about physics. All men deserve forgiveness, even him. Catching your wife with another man is no excuse for what he did. And he went there with a loaded gun, knowing he'd find them together. That's double premeditated murder. He's done nothing but cooperate with the authorities. If he'd committed this crime 100 miles north, he'd be looking at life imprisonment instead. How is that justice? Do you want a guy like this running free? I'll sleep just fine tonight knowing that he's gone. Good work so far. However, there is one problem. The execution room isn't functional yet because it doesn't have any power. Oh, the tutorial isn't done. Why did I let us click on the Polaroid? Okay, whatever. Normally the Polaroid brings you to the end of the chapter, but right now we still have some more work to do. I forgot. We need to connect it to the electrical supply. Alright, and this is bringing us to the underground view of the prison, the utilities mode, if you will. And, well, we are now viewing the prison in utilities mode, which shows us the electrical wiring layout for the entire prison. Each building in the prison is connected to the power grid by these thick underground electrical cables. And he's showing us the generator. Power is provided to the prison by this substation, which is it's the electric generator, blah, 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 blah. And then there's capacitors around it. And we'll learn more about that in a second. Meanwhile, there's a bunch of these lights that do not have power. As you can see, this entire wing of the prison cell is without power. All of the lights are out. To fix this problem, we first need to switch into utilities mode to understand why the lights are without power. The nearest electrical cables are too far away. Our engineers can't complete the wiring from this area. Extend the electrical cables nearby to cover this wing of the prison. So we're going to go back into Utilities view, right here by clicking on Utilities. In Utilities mode, we can see these electrical cables which have power from our generator. And all these lights are in each cell. So these circles here are lights, and there's one light in each cell. Electricity flows from these cables, and then an additional 20 meters. I believe it's 20 meters. You can count it out. So in order to make sure that these cells here have power, we need to extend this cable out further. So we're going to extend it out to here. And we queued it up, just as always, and our workers are going to construct it. So let us fast forward, and they're going to construct it. And here comes the cavalry. Here's our workers installing it. There we go. Once it gets installed, you can see the power flowing. But right now, this section of it hasn't been installed. Until all of it connected, then the electricity flows. There we go. Now all these cells have power in them. I mean, if the light was in this corner here, then it wouldn't have power. But it's in the middle of the room, so it has power. The lights aren't the only thing that needs power. Your new electrical chair does too. Use the power cables to connect the execution facility to the power grid. The electric chair itself is a special type of electrical item. It requires its own dedicated power line. You need to connect it up directly with the main cables. So some things don't need to be hooked up directly to the main cables, and some things do. We go to Utilities mode. Lights are something that do not need to be directly hooked up. As long as it's in the green area, it's fine. However, some things need to be directly connected to the power line. And so these cookers and these fridges in the kitchen, they need to be directly hooked up. And something as beefy as an electrical chair also needs power. So we're going to extend this cable out from the electrical chair out here. And we're going to bring the power down from this all the way down to our cable. So now we have one cable, once it's complete, that goes from this cell here all the way down and inside this building, inside this execution room. We can hit escape, and there we go, and we can super fast forward, and our workers are going to install it. Now, while we're waiting for our workers to install it, there's one bonus thing. You don't need to do this, but for the sake of realism and maybe safety, I'm going to do it. In Utilities, there's a power switch. Now, you can place this power switch on the wall. And once you place the power switch, you can turn it on and off by clicking on it. So by left-clicking on it, I can turn it off, and I can turn it on. And if we go into Utilities mode, we can turn it off, and that means electricity will not flow from these cables, and turn it on. Electricity will flow. And so this makes sense for this room to have the electricity be able to be turned on and off. Let us see what the CEO has to say. We're almost done, I think. We should test the execution room at least once before we try using it. I'm just going to turn it on for a few seconds, make sure everything is okay. Alright, he's about to turn it on. He's zooming this out all the way so we can look at the entire prison. And he turned it on, and immediately the entire prison loses power. Well, that didn't work. Looks like we drew too much power and tripped a circuit breaker in the power station. The whole prison is dark. Yeah, we're going to need to be able to generate more power. Well, not generate more power, we just need to store more power. We're going to need more juice if we're going to be able to handle that power spike that electric chair generates. Well, we need to beef up our generator. First, we need to turn the power back on. This is a two-step process. Switch the power station back on by clicking on it and selecting Switch On in the menu that appears. Then build 3 more capacitors so we have enough power to handle the electric chair. Once you've done that, test the electric chair again by clicking on it and selecting Switch On in the menu. So almost everything in the game can be clicked on and have a bunch of options next to it. So right here for the power station, the options are dismantle, so we can, take it apart into its pieces and store it. We can dump it, which is take it apart into its pieces and throw it in the trash. We can turn it on and we can turn it off. Well, let's turn it on so we can get power throughout our prison. And there we go. Now our prison is lit up. And if we hit follow, it just zooms you in on the object. And you can do this for most objects. You can click on the capacitor, and you can switch each capacitor on and off. You can look at each worker and decide if you want to fire them or not. You can look at the window and decide if you want to break it apart or get rid of it. I mean, every single piece in the game, you can decide, there's something you can do with it. Almost always have this dismantle or dump option. You can get rid of everything in the prison. So you can get rid of this entire prison, break it down into its pieces, and build an entirely new prison. That is an option in this game. That's how much freedom you have when you're playing this game. In the meantime, we are going to finish building these capacitors. We're going to go to Utilities, and capacitor, and we're going to build 3. Now here's a little trick, because if you click and hold when you're placing objects, it'll keep placing the object over and over again. So that's one capacitor, and I'm holding the next capacitor and holding. Here's the next capacitor. I'm going to hit escape. Now, if you look here, this red bar is how much power we're using. So this is the power for all the lights and these cookers and these fridges, everything in the prison. This is the current power, is how high up this red bar is. And it's kind of jiggling a little. And up at the top is how much we have in total. And you can see it's divided into different sections. Now, when we build these capacitors, the amount of power we're able to store will increase. So if we watch, they're loading up these capacitors, so that's what it takes to wire it in. And once it's all wired up, it increases it, and there we go. We increased it by 2 sections here. So before, it was overloading, and was probably the power is getting somewhere right here. We have one more capacitor. That's gonna increase the capacity by quite a lot. So before it was like, what? It was up to like here, in terms of from the bottom to the top. As we keep building these capacitors, the same power has less of an impact. Then we can put capacitors all the way around. But these are expensive. Capacitors are pretty expensive, but we have lots and lots of money, so that's not going to be a problem for this tutorial. And as soon as this capacitor is built, we need to test the chair. So wait for it. There we go. So the red bar went down. We have a lot more power we can store in our generator. So we're going to go to our electric chair and test it. Now this is on, so this room is lit up. So we can go and click on the electric chair, and this has a switch on and switch off option. Before we press switch on, let us look at the generator. And when we hit switch on, the amount of power that we're using in the prison will increase. So this red bar will jump up, and we can see how much it jumped up once we switch it on. So we're switching on in 3, 2, 1, switch on. And there we go. Look at how much power it was using. No wonder it overloaded the prison. But now we have more than enough storage to be able to handle this much power usage. We're just going to switch it off until we're getting ready to use it. And this time we use it, it's not going to be a test. Well done! I believe we're finished with this job. What happens now is out of our hands. We did a professional job, and that's what's important. Try not to worry about what happens next. Oh no, this is a church. And inside the church is the priest. And look at who is coming to see the priest. Why, it's Edward. Right after his fresh batch of 2 murders, he decides to go to a church to confess his sins. Can I help you? Are you looking for forgiveness?
I don't know. I have to do something. I can't live with the things I've done.
You have to turn yourself in. Whatever you've done, you cannot evade the consequences. You will never be able to live with yourself until you face up to your past.
I want to go back. I want to forgive her. I want her to forgive me.
Well, she's dead because you killed her with a gun.
God will forgive you no matter what you have done, if you ask him to. But you must answer for your crimes in the eyes of the law. There is no other way. Hopefully they won't decide to execute you. Whoops! They're totally going to execute you. But don't worry, I'll show up to your execution. Right, here I am. It is time, Edward. You have done the right thing, even though this world will not forgive you for it. You will be with God soon, and he will have the final judgment on you.
Remember, this is a priest talking to him. And, you can have your own beliefs, whatever, but this is the priest talking to Edward. And apparently Edward's religious because he decided to go to a church. So whatever. The game isn't really... religion actually does play a... not significant, but it is in the game. And even in the main game, not including the story. Some people are religious and will have desires based on their religion. It's not a huge component of the game, but it's actually something you can take advantage of very easily by just providing places for people to pray and to worship. After well as rambling about religion, Edward has got loaded up into his execution chair. And now you can see why I built the switch, just here in a moment. Alright, all the guards are getting ready. Oh look, there's the switch, right on the wall, right where I put it. There's Edward wired up to his chair. What's going to happen next? It's going to involve the death of one person. It's not going to be any of the guards or the priest. Edward Ramsey, you have been found guilty of 2 counts of murder in the 1st degree. The penalty is death. Do you have anything to say? Right, final words.
Susan, I'm sorry.
And zap. Screen goes white. It didn't go white when we tested it, but I'm assuming this is for dramatic effect, which is to signify that when we tested it, no one died. But now that the screen's gone white, somebody is dead now. and we built the facility to do it. And that's it for chapter 1 of Prison Architect. This is the actual end. Anyway, that's it for part 1. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions, please leave a comment below. And I look forward to seeing you in part 2. Bye!